Thank you for purchasing the Easy Press 3 and Easy Rebuild Kits by Score International. This video has been produced to train anyone in your office to efficiently use the Easy Press 3 and related tools. With step-by-step instructions and this training video, along with free technical support, we are confident that you will be able to rebuild any high-speed handpiece. Although high-speed handpieces can be rebuilt quickly and inexpensively, most manufacturers request repairs by an authorized manufacturer's representative. Score International does not imply that any handpiece manufacturer endorses our products or that our products are affiliated in any way. The user assumes all responsibility for equipment, parts, and liability. While the thought of a high-speed turbine may sound complicated, it is actually a very simple design. There are 5 basic components to all high-speed turbines. There are 2 bearings, O-rings, an impeller, a spindle, and a chuck. The chuck is the component that holds or grips the burr. There are 3 basic chuck styles: auto chuck, friction grip, and Jacobs or standard screw chuck. If the burr is slipping out of the turbine while in use, replacement of the chuck is necessary. The chuck is housed inside the spindle. The spindle is the shaft or axle that the bearings and impeller are pressed onto. The impeller is the heart of the turbine and resembles the blades of a fan. The impeller is pressed tightly onto the spindle. Air comes up through the handpiece and pushes the impeller, which in turn rotates the spindle and chuck. The impeller turns clockwise with the burr end facing away. If any damage to the impeller, such as chips, cracks, nicks, worn blades, or excessive corrosion is noticed, the impeller should be replaced. The precision miniature bearings are the components that allow the spindle and impeller to rotate at speeds of up to 500,000 RPM. All bearings function basically the same but differ due to flanges, width, height, raceways, and materials. Bearings fail over time due to normal wear from rotation, the extreme heat and pressures of autoclaving, lack of or poor maintenance, excessive air pressure, and dents caused by dropping the handpiece. The O-rings surround the bearings when the turbine assembly is inside the handpiece and also provide preload and hold the turbine in place. When a high-speed handpiece fails due to autoclaving, 90% of the time only the bearings and O-rings have worn out. These are the parts included in the Easy Rebuild Kit: bearings, O-rings, and other washers on some models. Anytime a problem is experienced with the turning of the turbine, it is a good indicator that the bearings and/or O-rings have failed or are about to fail. These problems are a loss of torque, burr wobble, screaming, or freezing up of the turbine. The only other problem experienced from time to time with the turbine is chuck failure. This is when it is impossible to get the burrs in or out, or when the burr creeps out of the handpiece while in use. For safety reasons, turbines should be repaired as soon as any of these symptoms are noticed. The bearings are located on both sides of the impeller and are pressed on and off the spindle with the Easy Press. In a basic rebuild, the impeller, spindle, and chuck will be reused, and the old bearings and O-rings will be replaced with new high-quality parts. Here's a caution: to ensure quality rebuilds, use only Score International's Easy Rebuild Kits and replacement parts with the Easy Press. All of our bearings and component parts meet or exceed the ISO standard and the original manufacturer's quality. Before rebuilding a handpiece, it will be necessary to become familiar with the various items provided with the Easy Press. Remove the Easy Press and all other items from the corrugated shipping box. Found inside will be the Easy Press, this training video, the Easy Rebuild Kits and component parts specifically ordered, a plastic storage box filled with various tools to be used with the Easy Press, along with rebuild instruction sheets, a parts catalog, and warranty information. The following items are located in the plastic storage box provided with the Easy Press: the auto chuck protection burr, blank burr, spindle ram inserts, bearing ram inserts, and our Easy Tight adhesive. The auto chuck protection burr has been specially designed to protect the spindle and auto chuck from damage while rebuilding certain handpieces. It must be used when rebuilding most turbines that have a power lever or push-button chucking system. Certain push-button models do not require the use of the protection burr. Refer to the instruction sheets specific to the handpiece model to determine if the protection burr should be used. Insert the hollow end of the protection burr into the handpiece before removing the turbine from the handpiece. All handpiece models that do not require the use of the auto chuck protection burr will be rebuilt with the blank burr. This includes all friction grip and standard screw chuck turbines and certain auto chuck turbines. Again, refer to the instruction sheet to determine if the blank burr should be used. Do not use the blank burr to rebuild any turbine that requires the auto chuck protection burr. When rebuilding any turbine, one of the spindle ram inserts and one of the bearing ram inserts will need to be used. Locate the spindle ram inserts, which are labeled alphabetically. Based on what type of handpiece is being rebuilt, one of these inserts will be used under the spindle ram on the left side of the easy press mechanism. Refer to the model-specific instruction sheet to determine which inserts to use on each of the handpiece models. Bearing ram inserts should also have been found. These are labeled numerically. It is necessary to use one of these inserts under the bearing ram located on the right side of the easy press mechanism. Again, refer to the instruction sheet to determine which inserts to use on each handpiece model. The inserts used most often can be stored in the magnetized holes in the base plate of the Easy Press. The Easy Press kit also contains a small bottle of an adhesive labeled Easy Tight. This should be used to hold bearings or impellers on the spindle when they are riding loosely or do not need a pressed fit. Certain European manufacturers use a similar adhesive to hold their bearings on rather than using a pressed fit. The procedure for applying Easy Tight will be covered later in the video. The Easy Press should be stored in a clean and dry place. The handle should be down and in the locked position. To unlock, gently pull up on the handle. Store any loose items in the plastic storage box provided with the Easy Press. Now, some of the most common turbines will be rebuilt. Although high-speed turbines vary, all have the same basic 5-component parts covered earlier. Currently, there are over 60 high-speed handpiece models. This video covers the 5 most common procedures and differences. However, for best results, always refer to the step-by-step instruction sheets while doing any rebuild. First, make certain the handpiece has been sterilized. Then set up the station. Choose a clean and well-lit area and place the Easy Press on a tray. Wipe off the pressing mechanism, base plates, and inserts before each use to remove any dust, lint, or debris. Work on one handpiece at a time, making certain the Easy Rebuild kit and instruction sheet match the handpiece being rebuilt. Always wear safety glasses when rebuilding, as old bearings sometimes break while being pressed off the spindle. Also, keep old parts separate from new parts. And when handling the bearings, take extra care not to drop them or to allow any debris or dust to enter the bearing. The first handpiece being rebuilt is a European model with a push-button chuck. With some European models, the spindle is larger in the center where the impeller rides. Therefore, the bearings must be pressed off individually. Begin by placing insert C under the left ram and insert 1 under the right ram. Check to make certain the chuck is functioning properly with a standard cutting burr. And then install the blank burr into the handpiece. Do not use the auto chuck protection burr on these types of handpieces. Remove the back cap with the back cap wrench. Now remove the turbine from the back cap and head of the handpiece. feed the burr end of the turbine up into the spindle ram. Once certain that everything is aligned, pull down firmly on the handle of the easy press and press off the front bearing and impeller. Once this is done, remove the old front bearing, impeller, and insert C from under the left ram and replace it with insert B. Now turn the spindle over and put the burr end down into the hole of insert B. Align the spindle ram over the spindle and press off the second bearing. The turbine is now disassembled. Inspect and replace the impeller if there are any cracks, broken vanes, or excessive wear. Open the rebuild kit. Inside will be 2 identical bearings and O-rings. To rebuild this type of turbine, try to start the rear bearing onto the spindle by hand. Then feed the burr end up into the spindle ram and press the spindle lightly into the bearing. There is a shoulder on the spindle that will stop the bearing when it has reached its correct location. Do not force the bearing past this point. Now slide the impeller over the burr end. Make sure the impeller is facing the correct direction. Feed the burr end up into the bearing ram on the right side of the easy press and press the impeller down to reach the rear bearing. Now install the new front bearing. On these models in particular, if it is possible to pull the bearings easily back off the spindle with the fingers, the Easy Tight procedure shown later in this video should be used to hold them on. Remove the old O-rings and clean the handpiece with a cotton swab and handpiece cleaner, making certain not to leave any debris or lint. Carefully install your new O-rings. Take time and be patient if the O-rings are difficult to get in. Insert the turbine into the back cap and then install into the handpiece. Turn the cap clockwise with your fingers. Finish tightening down the cap with the cap wrench. Check the burr for freeness. If any resistance is noted, remove the turbine, check the rebuild. Inspect the handpiece head for dents, then reinstall. The following rebuild applies to a particular brand of push-button turbines that are available as lubricant-free or require normal lubrication. Check to make sure the chuck is working properly with a standard cutting burr. Then install the auto chuck protection burr with a hollow side toward the turbine. Remove the turbine assembly from the handpiece and back cap. For these style handpieces, use spindle insert A under the left side of the easy press and use bearing ram insert 1 or 3 under the right side. To determine which bearing ram insert to use, perform this simple go, no-go test. Insert the rear of the turbine, the end opposite the burr, into the hole in bearing ram insert number 3. If the rear bearing lies completely flat on the surface of this insert, use it on the right side while rebuilding. If there is a gap between the rear bearing and the flat surface of insert 3, or the rear bearing will not lie completely flat, use bearing ram insert 1 on the right side of the press while rebuilding. Now place the burr end up into the spindle ram and press the parts off of the spindle. Remove the parts from the easy press and replace the impeller if there are any cracks, broken vanes, or excessive wear. Now, remove the new parts from the rebuild kit. The bearings are slightly different, so refer to the instruction sheet and simply press on the rear bearing so that the silver shielded side is facing down. Never try to press the bearings on by hand, as they are very fragile and may come apart. Let the easy press do all the work. Next, press on the impeller, making certain it is facing in the correct direction. Now press on the front bearing so that the silver shielded side is facing up. If any of the bearings or the impeller is riding loosely on the spindle, use Easy Tight to hold them on. Clean out the head of the handpiece. Remove the old O-ring from the outside threads of the back cap. Clean back cap with cleaner and a cotton swab. And stretch the new one into the same groove. Install the turbine into the handpiece. Carefully check to see that the push button works properly and that the spindle doesn't interfere with the back cap. If the push button cap does not have any free play, feels stiff, or heats up while running, the turbine should be removed from the handpiece to make a minor adjustment. Place bearing insert 3 under the right ram and feed the burr end of the turbine up into the bearing ram on the right side of the press. Slowly pull down on the handle of the easy press and align the push button mechanism on the rear of the turbine with the hole in insert number 3. Once certain that the button is aligned with the hole, pull down on the handle and press the bearings and impeller down until the rear bearing is flat on insert 3. Now install the turbine into the handpiece. Tighten down the back cap and check to make certain that the push button chuck works properly. The next handpiece being rebuilt has a power lever chuck. For this type of handpiece, it will be necessary to use insert A under the left ram and insert 1 under the right ram. Before rebuilding the handpiece, make sure the chuck is working properly with a standard cutting burr. If the turbine does not hold the burr, please call SCORE for a replacement chuck. Once certain that the chuck is working, install the auto chuck protection burr. Remove the back cap with the cap wrench. Remove the turbine from the handpiece and back cap. Before pressing the parts off, check the diagram to make sure it completely matches the turbine. Some models have a small spacer washer between the impeller and flanged bearing not found on other models, so it is very important to carefully study the instruction sheet and turbine. Insert the burr end up into the spindle ram. Pull the handle slowly and align the bottom of the turbine with the hole in insert A. Once aligned, pull down firmly on the handle and press off the old parts. Check for and remove the possible spacer washers usually found on each side of the flanged bearing. Inspect and replace the impeller if there are any cracks, broken vanes, or excessive wear. Check the spindle to make certain no parts of the old bearings have remained on the spindle. The spindle on the left has the inner race of a bearing on it. The procedure for removing the inner race is covered later in the video. Now, remove the new parts from the rebuild kit. First, press on the smooth bearings so that the side with the visible bearings will be facing away from the impeller. Then press on the impeller, making certain it is facing the right direction. If the turbine had a loose-fitting spacer washer between the impeller and flanged bearing, press it on next. Then press on the flanged bearing. Last, press on the front tight-fitting spacer washer. Always be sure to put the parts back in the same position that they came off. Remove the old O-rings from the back cap and the handpiece housing. Clean the handpiece and back cap with cleaner and a cotton swab. Replace the old O-rings with the new ones provided in the rebuild kit. Put the black O-ring in the groove in the back cap. And put the blue quad ring on the step of the flanged bearing. Insert the turbine into the back cap and then into the handpiece head, turning the cap clockwise. Make sure the back cap is snug using the cap wrench. Check the burr for freeness. If any resistance is noted, remove the turbine, check the rebuild and O-rings, then reinstall. Now the most popular standard screw chuck style handpiece will be rebuilt, which requires a burr wrench to change the burrs. For these model turbines, it will be necessary to use insert A under the left ram and insert 0 under the right ram. Insert the blank burr into the turbine. Remove the turbine from the handpiece and back cap with the back cap wrench. Make sure to push down and turn simultaneously for best results. The main difference to be concerned with on this particular handpiece is that on older models there is a retainer nut that holds all of the parts on the spindle. Here the difference can be seen. If a retainer nut is found on the turbine, it must be removed before putting the turbine into the easy press. The nut can be removed with a pin vise and a pair of pliers. First, grip the rear of the turbine where the burr changer would normally go with the pin vise. Then grasp the nut with the pliers and turn counterclockwise. Once the nut is removed, insert the burr end up into the spindle ram and press the spindle out of the bearings. Inspect the impeller for chips, cracks, and worn blades, and replace if necessary. Check the spindle to make certain the inner race of the rear bearing has not remained on the spindle. The spindle on the left has the inner race of a bearing on it. The procedure for removing the inner race is covered later in the video. Now slide on the smooth bearing so that the side with the visible bearings will be facing away from the impeller. Then press on the impeller, making certain it is facing the correct direction. Next, press on the flanged bearing. After all of the parts are on the spindle, reinstall the retainer nut with the pin vise and pliers. Remove the old O-rings and wave washer from the handpiece and back cap. Clean the head and cap with cleaner and Q-tip. Make certain to remove all debris and any lint. This model handpiece tends to get dented very easily. If any dents are noticed in the head, call SCORE to have it reamed out. Carefully install the new black O-ring into the back cap. Put the new blue quad ring directly on the step of the flanged bearing. Snap the turbine into the back cap and then slide the wave washer over the burr end. Be sure that the wings are curving upward, much like a cowboy hat. Now lower the head of the handpiece over the back cap and turbine assembly. Turn everything over and allow the wave washer to fall into the head of the handpiece. Make sure the wave washer is centered on the hole that the burr comes out, and install the turbine into the head of the handpiece. Constantly check the burr for freeness as you tighten the back cap. If any resistance is noted, remove the turbine, check the positioning of the O-rings and wave washer, then reinstall. One of the unique features of this turbine is that it has a two-part impeller system. Still, the parts press right off and right back on. For this model handpiece, use insert A under the spindle ram and insert 6 under the bearing ram. Check the chuck with a standard cutting burr to make sure it is holding the burr firmly. Remove the cutting burr and install the blank burr. Do not use the auto chuck protection burr on this style handpiece. Remove the turbine from the handpiece and insert the burr end up into the spindle ram. Pull down on the handle and press the old parts off of the spindle. Replace the impeller if it has any cracks, chips, or worn or bent blades. Check to make certain the inner race of the rear bearing has not remained on the spindle. The procedure for removing the inner race will be covered in just a moment. Using fingers or pliers, remove the blank burr and the push-button chuck from the spindle. The inner race of the rear bearing must be off in order to do this. Slide the rear of the spindle where the chuck was down the pin of insert 6. Press off the thin rear bearing down to the bottom of the spindle, making sure the side with the visible bearings is facing down. Press on the impellers piece by piece, making certain they are facing the correct direction. Now press on the wide front bearing with the silver side facing up. Slide the turbine assembly off insert 6 and reinstall the push-button chuck. Remove the old O-rings and clean the handpiece and back cap, taking special care to remove all debris and lint. Carefully install the new O-rings. Be patient while installing the O-rings on this model, as it may take a few moments the first few times. Install the turbine and tighten the back cap. Insert a cutting burr to check to make certain the chuck is holding the burr properly. If the chuck is not holding the burr, it should be replaced. Here are some additional rebuilding tips. To remove the inner race of a broken bearing off of the spindle, take a pair of wire cutters and hold the groove of the inner race. Then put the burr end up into the spindle ram on the left side of the easy press and press the inner race off of the spindle. If the bearings or impeller are riding loosely on the spindle, use Easy-Tight to hold them on. Drop a small amount of Easy-Tight onto a piece of wax paper. Then put a very small amount on the end of a sharp-tipped explorer. The tip should be moist but not runny. Then carefully apply the Easy-Tight to 2 or 3 locations on the inside of the inner race. Do not get any Easy-Tight inside the bearing assembly. Then carefully press the bearing or impeller into place. Using an air-water syringe, wash off any excess Easy-Tight. Let the turbine sit for at least 30 minutes before using. If rebuilding a canister-style turbine, use the Easy Canister Opener. Carefully look at the canister and find the seam where it should open. Then insert the end of the canister with the seam down into the opener. Make sure the alignment nipple on the canister is aligned with the slot stamped A. Using the provided Allen wrench, tighten the side of the canister wrench being used. Then simply put the assembly under the spindle ram on the left side of the press and press open the canister. On occasion, the spindle ram will pass through the canister without opening. In these cases, repeat the process using the canister plunger. Here are some more handpiece rebuilding and maintenance tips. Use a quality lubricant, preferably not aerosol cans. SCORE recommends and offers Phase Change and Minipure lubricants. Clean or lubricate handpieces before sterilization and re-lubricate after sterilization. Use a quality autoclave and make sure the temperature is not above 275 degrees Fahrenheit. Put handpieces on the top shelf or make certain the head of the handpiece is not near the heating element. SCORE does not recommend chemclaves to sterilized handpieces. Do not operate handpieces above the manufacturer's recommended air pressure. Normally, this is between 30 and 35 psi. Keep turbines, airlines, and filters clean. Use extreme caution when handling and loading bearings. It is not necessary to use a lot of force when pressing on new bearings. Rebuild turbines as soon as they lose torque, begin to wobble, or make screeching noises. Remember to keep new parts separate from old parts. Use Easy-Tight to hold loose bearings and impellers on the spindle. Adjust or replace the chuck immediately if the burr begins to slip. And remember to always follow the instruction sheet step by step and call for tech support immediately if there are any questions. Call 1-800-SCORE-OK for free tech support. That's all there is to Easy Turbine Rebuilds. Remember that we're here Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time to satisfy all your handpiece needs. Don't forget to take advantage of our toll-free technical support line anytime there's a question or problem. If there is ever an issue with the turbine you've rebuilt, do not take it apart. Call us or send the entire handpiece to us for an evaluation. We're sorry, but SCORE cannot evaluate turbines or bearings that have been taken apart or removed from the spindle. Thank you again for purchasing the Easy Press and Easy Rebuild kits by SCORE International. Your business is very important to us. And remember, if there are any questions, comments, or to order more rebuild kits, don't hesitate to call 1-800-726-7365.